Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You are listening and watching the Practitioner Podcast. We have Melissa Thompson on today. Ryan, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Uh,
Good, good.
Other than the fact that we have two Dallas fans
That's
on
okay.
this call.
You need more Cowboys fans in your life. That's what you need. That's all right.
Yeah, not
That's okay.
sure that's the case. Not sure that's
Hey,
the case.
hey, our coach doesn't have a contract. Our quarterback doesn't have a contract. What could possibly go wrong this season? This season, I think they're
Yeah.
my. I'm gonna lay the odds right now. I think they're both gonna have career seasons. I think Dak is going to have a crazy season, and I think Mike McCarthy is going to have a crazy season as well, because that's what happens in a contract
This
See, I
just
was.
shows that you're a longtime Cowboys fan because this is what Cowboys fans always think. It's gonna be
always.
great.
This year, this year,
Isn't it like your 30th year without playoffs or something?
oh,
Like,
100%. No, we
I
make it
was
to the
thinking.
playoffs. We make it
I
to the
was thinking
playoffs,
by
which is
September 7th, you guys will be irrelevant.
No, that's not
yeah,
how that works. We actually make it to January most years. It's in
yeah,
January that the
yeah.
tears start rolling down the right side of the eye.
We'll say, like, out of the two times that we play you guys this year, I'm not feeling super confident. Something about this year, I'm not feeling confident. Although everybody in Philadelphia thinks we've already won the Super Bowl, so we'll just go with that.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
see,
we'll
that's
check
probably
back in with you.
well, the problem is we thought that too. It just hasn't materialized for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, would you do us a favor and the audience a favor and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Melissa Thompson. I grew up and still live in Dallas, although I've lived all over the U.S. But I'm back and badder than ever.
Yeah.
I am currently the head of global TA at Ford Motor Company. So I do regular laps to Detroit. I've been at Ford for about 3 years, and I've been in talent acquisition for more than 20 years. It's my happy place. I love what I do.
I love this. And we're gonna get into your story. So the what did you do before Ford? What was
Right
your
before Ford, I was at Nielsen. I was at
what?
Nielsen for about 2 years. It was my pandemic job.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, yeah. Prior to Nielsen, I was at McGraw-Hill. And prior to McGraw-Hill, I was at Citrix for about 7 years. So if you look
So
at my
you've moved
mid-career,
industries. Yeah,
yeah,
all big
I was
companies.
much more into the technical um, digital recruiting and
Right.
just wandered away after my time at Citrix. So
Well, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. We're gonna dig into that. Go ahead, Ryan.
How did you go from technical to automotive?
Yeah,
Which is quite technical, Tay. I mean, let's
yeah,
be
it is.
honest.
it
Yeah.
is,
Hiring a lot of engineers. Yeah.
yeah. So when I left Citrix, I actually took 6 months off and visited many beaches around the world and
Right.
really had a reset. I ran my own consulting company for about 6 months and
Hmm.
got an offer from my first client, which was the CHRO at McGraw Hill, to help them design their talent acquisition organization. And about a year in, I went into the CHRO's office and I said, "You're using a really big hammer for a really small nail." Because we had shrunk the size of the TA team. It was less
Mm.
than 20 people globally. And I was like, "You don't need me, but I will give you a plan for how to go forward." And so at that point, I jumped out and went to Nielsen, which is very, very technical, right?
It
It's
is.
very data science oriented. It's very how do you manage metrics and numbers? And they really understood recruiting, but not how they could more speedily find the talent they needed. And they needed both this technical talent and this massive customer service talent. So, how do you do the niche recruiting and the high volume recruiting at the same time? I was like, well, first of all, you don't have the same person doing both of those
That's
things.
correct. Yes.
So I did that for just about 2 years, as I said, and a recruiter called me and said, "Hey, Ford is trying to figure out how they shift their mindset to get technical talent to understand that the cars of the future are actually just computers on wheels. And so they need to attract more technical talent. And so they really want a TA leader that understands that. It's not so important that you understand the automotive space, but how we reposition Ford for tech talent
Mm.
is what we need to do right now. And that's how I ended up where I am today.
That is a fantastic way for the recruiter to present that to you. Knowing your background, not just saying, hey, we need a new head of talent. It was, we need to transform
Yeah.
and understand how to bring in more technical talent.
Yeah.
Kudos to them on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's also another example of that outside of Ford. I think it was Whirlpool, maybe a couple years
Mm-hmm.
back. They started, I could be, I think it was Whirlpool. They started to run commercials around
Hmm.
engineering in their dishwashers and things
Right.
like that. And I never actually thought about that until I think it was even a Super Bowl commercial where I was kind of like,
Actually, the thing you're thinking about is when GE made that shift, and they did the
yes,
Yes.
commercial
yes,
with the guy who was trying to explain to his family and his friends
What
what
he
he
yes,
does.
did. Yeah, yeah,
yes. It
Genius.
blew me away. Like I guess I knew it, but I
Yeah.
never thought of it that way. It's like every time I look at my dishwasher now, I'm like,
Yeah, because
yeah.
that's
There's a
pretty
lot of
cool.
tech in there.
well,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get into a groove, and you can think of Ford as an automotive company. And
Mhm.
okay, yes, the outputs are automotive, got it. But everything leading up to that is it's not blue collar. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a whole lot of white collar jobs and
yeah.
a whole lot of technology.
Yeah, I actually don't do the hourly recruiting. The hourly recruiting is done in the plant. And so through the recruiting process, I ask the question, am I going to need to go and recruit for hourly? They're like, no, no, you're fine. Salaried, all that. I was on board for 3 weeks when a plant leader found me and said, I need your help. And I was like, say what now?
No, no,
He
no, no,
said,
no, 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 no.
he said, hey, pre-pandemic, we would just run an ad and we would get hundreds and hundreds of applicants. He said, now we barely get 10. He said, I need you to help me figure out how do I energize my applicant pool. I'm like, that I can do. I'm like, let's get some billboards going.
Yeah.
Let's put some things on gas
Oh
stations,
yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
little QR codes. And
We
it
need
has
you need
been
more
really,
applicants.
really
We can get
amazing.
more applicants. But if you don't
Yeah,
have to do the interviews and all the
exactly.
other stuff, I'm game.
Yeah, yeah, on
But when
top of the funnel, I'm there for that.
oh yeah, 100%. When you talk about when we talk about hourly and salaried, let's just say, do you think those are two different tech stacks? Like, is it technology
That's so
that
funny
much
you
different?
say that. I think they should be two different
Yeah.
tech stacks because the way hourly come into the funnel is so different, right? They may not have an email address. They
Right.
may not have
Mhm.
something that can get to the QR code. So what is the lightweight way that the hourly comes into the ATS versus someone that's coming in through a LinkedIn or an Indeed or
Right.
Yeah.
recruiter or sourcer reached out, right? Yeah. Yeah. I actually have had this interesting idea that we should do different ATSs by region,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
Put Europe on their own ATS,
Yep.
right? They feed into, then you got all that crazy GDPR,
GDPR. Yeah.
privacy, yada yada in its own, and then you don't have to worry, everyone else doesn't have to do the thing that is
Right.
hardest because we're all leaning towards Europe. Yeah,
Well,
see, you
what I
got me
like
on one of my
about
soapboxes.
no, no, no. What I like about that is because people would initially say, well, why do we need 7 different ATSs for these different regions? They're not going to talk to each other. Well, you don't need them to talk to each other until they're employees. And
Exactly.
so once they're onboarded as an employee, then they're going to go into a centralized data, whatever you have is your
Mm.
HRS,
Yeah,
payroll system, etc. So they can live in a different ATS. I
yeah.
love that actually. Get the best of breed in that region.
Hmm.
I like that a lot.
That's
Brian,
the
I can see you
uh,
having trouble with that.
a little. Like I'm on both sides. I've never thought. I was never a huge proponent of let's have one overarching
Oh yeah,
ATS
agreed.
across the enterprise.
That's just bad.
But the argument is always going to be made. No, let's bring in one, so everything is in one. But maybe let's unpack that a little bit. How so? If you're looking at an ATS per region, and maybe define region. Are we
Yeah,
talking
big
like
regions.
West Coast, East Coast, Central? Or are we
Oh
talking
no,
like
we're talking global. We're talking
Global.
global? Okay.
so maybe the
EMEA.
Americas is on one, Europe and Middle East Africa is on one, and
Got it.
Asia
Hmm.
Pac with its
Yeah.
China,
Yeah, yeah,
Japan,
yeah,
we need
yeah, yeah.
special things. India,
Yeah.
Right
we
to
need special
left.
things. They're on the third one, right? So you just
Mm-hmm.
it's not I don't need one for every single country, but if you do it sort of in those big
Yeah, yeah.
global region buckets,
Agreed.
yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. You
It
can't
does
argue
make
that.
sense. No, I like
Oh,
it a lot.
yeah. Let me be clear. People can for sure argue that. I
Oh
just
yeah. No, no. Well, because they want it to be if you're
one
an
global
Oracle
system.
shop, right? If you're a
Mm-hmm.
Workday shop, or if you're an
Mm-hmm.
SAP shop,
Mm-hmm.
they want it to
Yeah.
all be in that one thing. Uh, Problem is whenever, like with Ryan said, whenever you get one system for salaried and hourly, someone's going to suffer.
Yes.
Either it's hardwired for high volume, and so the hourly people are great, the recruiters, the
Yeah.
hiring managers over there, and it's not great for the salaried people, or
But there
it's
are
the other
also
way.
data disconnects because what you're collecting in data up here is going to be different than what you're collecting over here, or what you're collecting in this region is different than what you collect in this region. Like, just think about zip codes.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And the zip codes in China and the zip codes in Australia are so different than the way we format our zip codes in
Right.
the Americas.
yeah.
It's little things and big things too.
I've I don't know. I've struggled with this with people as well, with just like having one ATS be that they want to make it the system of record. It's like, no, your
Mm-hmm.
payroll system's the system of record. You don't need the ATS. You need the ATS to work well for hiring managers, for the candidates, and for the recruiters.
Yeah.
Maybe even the executives if you want to do reporting. But other than that, it's got to work for those people, period. Ryan and I have talked a lot about response rates in the hourly market. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
in the seconds and minutes before you lose that moment of attention. They've already moved on to
Yes.
something else. Are you
Yes.
seeing if you're seeing that in hourly, are you seeing some of that bleed over into salaried?
This is the first company that I've ever worked for where people so want to work for Ford that the
Right.
volume of applicants is straight up crazy, straight up
Okay.
nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
remember.
you
So, Melissa, I used to work with a company called Conexa. It's an RPO
Yeah.
company, and which is
Mm-hmm.
now IBM. But Ford was one of our larger clients.
Yeah.
And so when she says a lot, like we're talking 50,000 on it, like just there. And it's like, what do you do with that? That's a whole
oh
different
my
problem,
God. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's like forget top of the funnel, middle, bottom. Like it's just your funnel.
These are qualified
Yeah.
people.
Well, I don't know if they're
No, that's just the
qualified.
top of the funnel. That's just
Okay.
the top of the
Okay.
funnel.
This
Okay.
is
Then
All
this
right.
then
is
you got to
just
figure out
people coming
how
in.
do I make it through all these
So
candidates to
you've
get
so
Right.
you've got
to
to yeah, so you've got to
yeah.
do a lot more of screening and assessments and other types of things just to get it down to a manageable number.
Yeah. So, Ryan, because you brought up the history lesson, I will say they were still on brass ring when I got here 3 years ago.
Oh, that's so bad. I hope you
Just
switch
saying,
that.
the transformation has been fun.
Well, brass
I
ring.
love all my brass ring people.
Oh yeah.
I'll say
Oh
that.
yeah.
But I hope you
but
got rid
but
of that
but
too.
their time, yeah. Well, they were in the midst of a Oracle Recruiting Cloud implementation when I got here, so
Okay.
we have implemented, gone live, and just recently put Eightfold on top of it to
Oh cool.
help manage that top of the funnel piece, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. 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 Well, so your team uses the Oracle recruiting product.
Yep.
We've podcasted with them. We've met the people, the product managers
Mm-hmm.
that run Oracle recruiting, and
Yeah.
they're fantastic. They're really,
Yeah.
really nice people. They're trying to
Yeah.
build more of an ecosystem around the recruiting product so that
Yes.
you can easily select assessments and background screening and all the stuff that you need around that. It's, never
They've
easy.
been really good partners over the past 2 years in terms of helping us get to a place where we're stabilized
Right.
and getting us to land so that we could bring in the Eightfold on the front end and really have the two systems map up to each other and talk to each other. So, yeah,
That's
it's been an
smart.
interesting journey.
All right, we got to go back. Ryan, how far are
Okay.
we going back?
Oh,
Middle school? High
seventh
school?
grade? No, she's
I'm
like,
like,
what?
oh,
What?
seventh grade.
It was an awkward period. Let's just be
Yeah.
honest.
No, let's why don't we do college? So you're
Okay.
you're in college, you're graduating, you're coming out of college. What was the aspirations? Where did you want to go? What did you want to be? I'm assuming it wasn't a global head of talent.
Ballet. I'm
I
going
had no
ballet.
idea that such a thing existed. So first, I went to Austin College, which is in the booming city of Sherman, Texas.
It's a great
Small
college.
private college, 2,000 people when I was there. Really, super fantastic experience.
A very, very good
Um,
school, Ryan. Ryan, you would like it because it's near Lake Texoma, which is one of the largest lakes in
I like
Texas,
the word lake.
and
yeah,
it's deep, like it's like ocean deep, like it's crazy because it's in
yeah, it's
between
beautiful.
Oklahoma and Texas, so it's
Yeah.
on the Red River, and it is
Hmm.
a really pretty lake. Anyhow,
Yeah.
Sherman and Austin
So,
College, greatness.
yeah, I can literally recall the day of my graduation. I had a glass of wine in my hand and I was walking down the street where my parents lived. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself?
Hmm.
So the answer is I graduated from college without a plan.
Yes.
I went into retail. Initially, I was on the floor at Saks Fifth Avenue,
Yep.
and then I was the assistant manager for men's furnishings. I could pick out the matching tie and
Oh,
all the
nice.
all the things. My
No,
parents were not feeling that so much.
yeah.
My
I,
dad
I
was
was
a
I was just
doctor.
I was
Yeah,
just gonna
my
ask
dad.
you that. Yeah.
How did that jive with the whole Austin College private education
Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
My dad was a doctor, and my mom was a supervisor at Texas Employment Commission.
Oh
So
my God,
both
TC.
very
Yeah.
educated, very smart,
Yeah.
very driven. They were like, "Yeah, this retail thing isn't working for us. How about you go get an MBA? How about that? How about let TikTok?" So I went back and got. I'd only worked for about a year and a half, and I went back and got my MBA at UT in Austin. Super interesting experience.
Oh yeah.
One of my first classes was organizational behavior, and it was like someone like pulled a light bulb, and I was like,
Huh.
this is the space I want to be in. I really quite enjoyed marketing, and my marketing teacher said to me, you've got to be in marketing. You
Right.
have the mindset for it. You would be so good at it. I was like, I kind of like this other thing over here. But think if you go fast forward and you look back, like, look how much marketing there is in talent acquisition today. No one
Tons.
knew
Yeah.
that back then when we were calling it personnel,
Right.
right?
Right.
But back in the day. So I graduate from B school and I went back to Saks Fifth Avenue. I actually opened the Tyson's Corner Saks Fifth Avenue in
When-
Washington, D.C. as the personnel assistant. So like I connected
Mm.
those things back together. I was like, you see
Oh
how
my
Hmm.
this ended up
God.
working for me, mom and dad? They were like, okay.
Opening a
Yeah.
store
They
opening
weren't
a
buying it.
store is hard because
Yeah,
you've got to recruit everybody.
yeah,
That is not an easy job. I've had to
yeah,
open
Mm.
a bunch of stores and recruit for a bunch of stores.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
easy. Not
Yeah.
Well,
easy at all.
it was fun for me because you might not have caught this about me yet, but I'm kind of a driver. And
Yeah.
so opening the store, we've got this much time to get this many people. I'm like, we're running an ad
Right.
here and we're gonna do this, and here's how we're gonna do the interviews, and here's how we're gonna get the floaters pulled together. And we opened the store on time with all the resources that we needed, and I suddenly realized that maybe making $8.50 an hour wasn't going to work for me in the DC area, that
Oh yeah. No,
maybe
that's
possibly I needed to think about taking more advantage of this MBA education that I had. And
Yeah.
so I was only there maybe not even 8 months. And I went to work for a local company called Atlas Systems. Well, actually, I went to work for West Group first. Really great experience. Those of us that look back on those times when affirmative action plans were literally done by hand,
oh yeah. If
that
they,
was an amazing experience. You
if they
learn
were
a
even
lot.
written down.
You
Yeah.
really understand the guts of how this stuff works when you have to like
Yep.
pen to
Yep.
paper. Um, the bottom dropped out of the real estate market. I went to work for this company, Atlas Systems, and
Were you
really,
still in
really hated
DC,
it.
or did you come back to?
I
Did
was
you come
still
back
in
to Dallas?
DC. So in total, I was in DC for about 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
I was on the phone with my mom one day, and I was super upset because I'd done a presentation and just gotten the snot beat out of me. And she said, you don't have to stay there, you can move home at any time. And I was
Correct.
like, I walked into my boss's office that afternoon, and I was like, you know what? Peace out, homie. He
Yeah,
was like, no, wait, what? I'm
yeah.
like, no,
Presentation
you're
wasn't that
not
bad.
supporting me.
Yeah,
Yeah. And as we talk about my career, this might be a theme. Like, if you don't support me and I feel like I'm not being paid appropriately,
Yeah.
deuces. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the way it should be. That's
It
the
should
way
be
it
that way.
should be. Yeah. So I was going to ask you about intent. Were you moving with intent from job to job?
yeah.
I feel like you were, but I also feel like you were kind of like, I'm done
Oh,
with you, and I move on.
at this stage, what my only intent was run away. This is not the right job for you. You are not in your happy
Goodbye.
place. Run
Especially
away.
if you weren't being supported. Like again,
Exactly.
we talk about this with other folks.
All the time.
Why, if you're not going to be supported, leave, because it's not.
Yeah.
They're already sending you the
Yeah.
signal. They've
Yeah.
sent you the signal in that presentation.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
sent you the signal because they could have
Yeah.
easily said, "Okay, hey, Melissa, some good stuff here. Okay,
Yeah.
some things that we need to work on next time." Like they could have coached you up, and they could have spent a little bit of time doing that. They chose not to.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
quiet as it's kept, my boss actually had narcolepsy, like literally had narcolepsy. So the CEO is beating the shit out of me in this meeting,
yeah,
and my boss is asleep.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
what else?
anybody else in the room could have said something,
Yeah,
and they didn't.
Yeah.
Again, those are choices. Those are
yeah,
choices that
exactly.
people make. So, did you get back to Dallas? What'd you do when you get back?
Went to work for a company called Republic Money Orders.
Okay,
And at this point, I was doing HR, generalist
right,
HR. I wasn't in just recruiting.
right.
And Republic Money Orders was owned by a company called Travelers Express.
Yeah,
And the head of Travelers and the CHRO from Travelers came down and said, we are absorbing all of the Republic Money Orders offices into HQ. So you have a choice. You can move to Minneapolis, Minnesota, or you can take a package and go find a new job. And I was like, what is happening right now? I moved to Minneapolis.
whoa,
Oh man. Okay.
Did.
bless
I
you. You
did.
went, you go see Prince? That's the only thing in Minneapolis that's worth it
Well,
back then.
Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam are also there. So,
Oh, okay. All right.
right?
Fair
It's a
enough.
whole thing.
Fair enough.
Um, it was a super interesting experience for me. I
Yeah.
will tell you, because I had met the CEO in person, I actually had a really great relationship with him. And he would do these all hands meetings. And there was an all hands meeting where he stopped and he said, "Does anyone have any questions?" And you could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah.
And he said, "Guys, this is important stuff. You need to understand how the business works. You need to understand how we're making money. You need to understand what challenges we're dealing with." And I raised my hand and I asked a question. And after the meeting, he was like, "Every time I want you to do that. Every time." What I learned was, look, you can choose to be the quiet person in the back of the room and not ask a
Mhm.
question, or you can have the gumption to
Yep.
say, this thing, I was taking notes and this thing I have a question about. And he was just so happy that I had asked a question that I was like,
And again,
awesome
those are
sauce.
Melissa, those are choices that executives make.
Yes.
Like you look at the
Yes.
CEO previously, where they
Yeah.
took the opportunity to just tear you down
Yeah.
when they could have easily taught you up.
Yeah.
And here's a CEO that basically said, you know what? I need more of you.
Of
I need
that.
more of that.
Hmm.
Again, those are choices.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
absolute choices that people make.
Yeah. So I grew up in Dallas. I moved to Dallas
Mhm.
when I was 3. So I am a warm weather gal.
Yeah,
So
me too.
this Minneapolis thing was really quite a mess.
Way too cold.
I went into the CHRO and I said, "Look, Travelers Express is owned by the Dial Corporation, which is based in Phoenix, Arizona."
I could do that. I can do
What
that.
do I have to do to get an opportunity to move to
It's a
Phoenix? Like, what
it's
do
a
I have to
dry
do?
heat. It's a dry heat, but I can do that. I
Yeah.
can't.
She said she gave me a literal plan. You have to do these things, and then if an opportunity comes up, I will support you to go and interview for it. And if you get it, I'll let you go. 18 months after that, I was in Phoenix. I
How
can
cool is
clearly
that?
remember I moved in a February, so I'm in like all the layers on my way to
Uh,
Phoenix. I had a short set in my bag. Went into the bathroom in Phoenix and changed into a short set,
it's
and
all
I was
right.
like, all
I
right,
knew
N-
you. I
Never
knew
looked
yes.
back.
you.
Never
Yeah.
looked back. No.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you see the shift, Ryan, to the more intentional.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. 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 So well, we have to talk about this now, but I don't want to forget about it. So a couple of things. One, the way you were treated in the
Hmm.
beginning
Yeah.
versus how you treat people now, right?
Yeah.
How does that play into it? But second,
Mm.
when you were in the room and the CEO said, ask questions, and
Yeah.
nobody raised their hand, there's a lot of people that listen to this that are in that situation today
Yeah.
that say,
Yeah.
I have a lot to say, but like I'm afraid to ask.
Mm,
Yeah.
How do they
Yeah.
raise their hand and not be afraid to be
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
wrong or feel like they're not important?
Okay, so my question was a thoughtful question about the business. He had laid out these things about the business strategy. Did everyone notice that I was taking notes? And
right.
so when he said someone asked a question, I looked back at my notes and I
Mhm.
was like, you said this about where we're going with the strategy. What are the things we need to do to be able to do XYZ? So don't just ask some random question. It's not about I asked a question. Ask
Yeah.
a question that shows I'm thinking, I'm understanding what you told me, but I really have this question about what about this other thing? And by the way, I tell my team this same thing because when we do HR all hands, I often am the first person or the second person to ask a question because I'm taking notes as people are talking. And when that silence hits where no one's asking a question, I'm the one saying, yeah,
I
and
love it.
and I said, and that gives you a visibility that you can't get if you're in the back of the room with your arms
Right.
crossed,
Well,
not
and
taking notes, not
and
actually listening, right?
and also as a curious person,
Yeah,
it answers your question. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
generally, so some of it is it scratches that itch for you intellectually.
yeah, yeah.
You're trying to understand something.
You bet.
I love that. Brian asked about treatment. I think it's a really important question. Like now, not just versus then, because you've probably always been the same person, but how do you kind of get your team to treat people
Yeah,
at a way that you want to
Mm.
be treated, that they should be treated, etc. Because
yeah.
it's not
So,
everybody grew up the same way. So
right.
just
So
leave it at that.
first, I will say, when I came into this job, most of the people that were in leadership and TA could spell TA. And sorry to those, but they didn't have like the depth of experience, right? They might have
Right,
been an HR person that was shifted into a TA
right.
role and they're like, and here I am. I'm in my happy place. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So I actually brought people that had worked for me at different places in the past here, right? And so there were
I love
people
that.
that understood how I work
Hmm.
and that enjoyed working for me enough in the past that they would come and work for me again.
Right.
So that helped me to layer into the organization. This is how we work. These are the things that we do. These are the things that are important. Data
Unacceptable behavior.
has to be
Yeah,
at the core. You can't just come into Melissa and say, well, I think this and this and this are happening. And what
yeah.
data do you have that
That's right.
tells you that these things are happening? So people know you can't just come with some I pulled this out of the air kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Or if you do, Melissa's going to ask you questions and she's going to dig to try and understand, like, how did you
yeah.
come to that conclusion? And so don't come all willy nilly. Come with,
Right.
I understand, I need to tell a story.
I
The other
worked for a
thing
guy,
is,
Melissa.
I'm,
I worked for a guy back in the '90s who you could not set a meeting with unless there was an agenda with items on the agenda and the decision maker in the room. It's
yeah,
like there was a problem. we're going to discuss the solution, and someone in the room is going to have a decision to make,
Yeah.
pro, for, whatever.
Yeah.
But he would not put a calendar thing on his calendar
Yeah.
unless all that stuff was done.
Yeah. I worked for a boss at Bank of America who said 5 pages is the max of a PowerPoint. If you have a 10-page PowerPoint, maybe you get to come back next week. But at page 5, you're done. So that made people really think about, and he said in 12-point font on a PowerPoint is not a thing. So it's not that you're going to make the words smaller so
No,
you
no,
fit
Yeah,
them on
no.
the
yeah,
page.
you're 35
But
and 40
Margins
headlines.
got to increase the margins. Yeah.
I don't force people to do 5 pages, but I do say, think about how do you tell this story? And in particular in TA, what's your one pager?
Yeah.
How do you tell a story to a hiring manager or a business leader in one page? And don't just throw a whole bunch of data salad onto the page and be like, look, what's
Uh-huh.
your insight? What does it tell you? What question do you want answered when you show this to someone? So, as you can tell, I'm kind of a teacher. For people to I want people to ask questions because I know people say there are no stupid questions, and there really aren't.
Mm,
The stupid question
mm.
is the one you didn't ask
There you go.
because you just go and try and do something without
Yeah.
really understanding how the things connect. I try to have a rhythm so for my direct reports, I meet with them one on one every other week, and we
Right.
meet as a team every on the off weeks. We do a stand up meeting every single Monday. What's going on with you? What's up? What'd you do over the weekend? Like just like the
Right.
connector. But then I do with my team is called TA Leadership. I do TAL plus one once a month. So that lets that next level down have visibility to the TA leaders,
Mm,
and they take turns presenting. We take turns
Oh, that's
and then
cool.
once a month,
yeah.
the whole team, everyone, and changing topics every month. Sometimes doing things where we do a big, massive Moreau board and people
Hmm.
split up into smaller groups and they work
Yeah.
through some problem and then they come back and they present. So I try to make it as interactive as I can so that I consistently have engagement down through the team, but also they're able to see me and they're able
Right.
to understand that I see you too.
Yeah, and that interaction is so important in organizations. Let me ask you this around that. So, how do you or are you leveraging those meetings to not just understand and engage with the employees, but who's the next leader or who's stepping up next in the organization? Are you
Yeah.
able to kind of get that feel from that?
So here's what's interesting. 2 months ago, I had someone on my team that left. And it was someone that had worked for me for a long time.
Right.
One of those boomerangs from another company.
Right. 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 Right.
She ended up wanting to be closer to home and she actually wants to be in an office all the time. I'm like, okay.
Mm.
Hmm.
Um, so
Problem number one.
right. So I promoted someone from that TAL plus one team onto my direct report team to take that job.
Oh, cool.
And I went to TAL plus one and I said, it's possible that you saw this as a move that I made without interviewing, and maybe it was a succession planning decision that I had. If you felt like you might have been really good for that job and you didn't get that opportunity, I want you to put a one-on-one on my calendar and let's talk about what is your experience? What is your background? Why did you feel like that job was for you, but I didn't see you or I didn't know? And I had two people on that team, on that next level down team, that came to me and said,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to give people the opportunity to step up. I said, but I'm not always going to just post a job and say anybody
Yeah.
apply.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes I'm going to say this was a succession planning decision and this person has this other experience from outside that makes
Right.
that person good to move on. Yeah. So
And
I
why
try to do
didn't I
both things.
see you? Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's really neat how it's obvious. I mean, obviously it was a succession planning, right there. It's in there, but how you present it to them.
Yeah.
Why haven't I seen? And
Yeah.
giving them the opportunity to have that conversation, I think,
I love that.
is critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, how have you fixed hiring managers? 'Cause
They're not fixable. We know this job would be so much easier if we could just have the hiring managers just step back and let us decide who's gonna be in the job. That'd be
Finally,
amazing.
someone said it. We've
Yeah,
all we've all thought it.
yeah.
Someone finally said it.
You know
Okay,
this is
good.
being recorded, right?
I'm
I
just
do. I'm aware. It's all good, and you
I,
might have heard me say it before.
the
But
only
here's what I
the
do. I do two things. One
yeah.
is I have a recruiting process model that I think is uber simple. It's crisp, clarify, review, interview, select, prepare. It's just a super easy way of
Yeah.
thinking about the
Mm,
process. And underlying that model is here's what the hiring manager is responsible for doing, here's what the recruiter is responsible for doing, and here are the SLAs aligned to both of them, right?
Oh.
So there's that. Then there's this training that I call winning talent. And it's really it's kind of the Jerry Maguire. It's
Yeah.
help me help you. This is not about you opened a rec and you threw the ball over to the recruiter
Uh,
and you're like, hey, call me when you got candidates. No, this is
mhm,
teamwork. And so through the thread through winning talent is feedback is not optional. If
right.
you don't give specific feedback on why you liked or didn't like those resumes at the top of the funnel, 90 days later, your job's still not filled. And you know why? Because you didn't give specific feedback, because
Right.
you didn't help
yeah.
the recruiter narrow down to here's what I'm really looking for. So, that might be another one of my soapboxes,
Yeah.
really
No,
helping
we're
hiring managers understand how
do you,
they have to be engaged if they want to get their rec filled.
as a part of that, do you teach them how to interview?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Because, and just imagine in a 120-year-old company,
Yeah.
people that have been here for however many, 25, 30,
Right.
35 years, they're like, I know how to interview.
Mm,
Okay, all
mm,
right.
mm.
How would you interview someone that is currently at Facebook and makes more money than you can pay them? How would you both interview them and sell them on this job? Humana, humana, humana.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's talk about different ways to actually interview and sell as part of your interview process. If all you do is just like punch somebody with your questions and then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm done
That
with my interview, I'm out.
that's a
That person is not
interrogation.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Are you still getting a lot of hiring managers, and maybe we could separate this from Ford, maybe. But are you still seeing hiring managers all over interviewing by intuition and gut and not relying on tech or intelligence to kind of tie it all together?
Is it okay if I go fashizzle?
100%.
I mean,
Yes.
absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Because that's the now I'm asking for the feedback on the interview and
Right.
their answer is just
Yeah.
no. And I'm like, "Well, no,
Mm,
because for why?" "Well, I just didn't like them."
I just didn't
Okay,
like
let's
them.
get deeper on this.
Mm,
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
questions did you ask? What were the specific things that you didn't like about their responses? And just so you know, I don't know who's going to watch this podcast, but let me just say my pals in HR also need to learn this particular thing. You
Correct.
cannot just
yeah.
tell me, well, I didn't like that person.
That's not
What
enough.
did you not like? What was it about them? Because I don't want to send you another candidate that we're going to take all the way through this interview process and then you're going to
That's right.
say, no, I'd like to get your
Right.
job filled.
And we're creating ill will with candidates when we do that. So like we're
Absolutely.
turning them off because we didn't get feedback. And I do the same thing in art. It's like if you don't like a piece of art, that's cool.
Yeah.
But you gotta tell me what you didn't like about the piece of art. So
Yeah.
you've got to actually you gotta use your
And what you
words.
liked, what resonated. What was the thing that resonated in there
That's
and
right.
what like just really
Right.
didn't work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I have that, I can understand what you need next. And I think that's
Hmm.
one of the things that recruiters they sometimes feel subservient to hiring managers, and it's like they'll accept those poor behavior. Like,
Yes.
okay, you didn't give any feedback. Well, let me just go out there and let me see if this works. It's like
Right.
uh,
Right.
that it might work.
Yeah.
Chances are it won't.
Yeah.
They're waiting to see if they can figure it out on the fly. Like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
really like this person, which
Yeah.
leads to all kinds of biases getting brought into the system because they're doing like me bias, they're doing the latency bias, they're doing all kinds of stuff. It's like no, 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 no. I love that you're teaching people how to interview, both HR
Yes.
and hiring managers.
Yeah.
Ryan, I'm good. You have a last question?
No, no last questions
I,
here. I appreciate you mentioned personnel department, Melissa.
oh,
We
Yes.
still have a J.C. Penney's, one of like 5 stores in this entire mall, which is massive, and J.C.
Yeah.
Penney is still there. And as you make your way down into the bathroom area, there's a door.
Yeah.
It says
It
personnel.
says personnel.
I'm going to take a
personnel.
picture and send it to you because it is still there, and there are still people
Yeah.
there, and it cracks me up
Yeah.
every time I go through it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
That's funny.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Awesome.
Melissa, thank you so much for your time. We
You bet.
appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your experience. We just love it.
Fun conversation. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Safe trip back. And thanks to the audience for listening. Until next time.